So today we will study hormones की स्ट्रक्चर के बेसिस पे इनका क्या क्लासिफिकेशन है. सो फर्स्ट वन इज़ अमीनो एसिड डेरिवेटिव्स. अमीनो एसिड डेरिवेटिव में हम दो अमीनो एसिड्स पढ़ेंगे जिनसे कि वेरियस हार्मोन्स डिराइव्ड होते हैं. फर्स्ट इज़ टायरोसिन. टायरोसिन से थायराइड हार्मोन्स लाइक T3, T4, triiodothyronine and tetraiodothyronine, and catecholamines. What are catecholamines? Catecholamines are the hormones that are produced by adrenal medulla, and these are adrenaline, noradrenaline, and dopamine. And the order that adrenal medulla produce these hormones is it produce more of adrenaline, then noradrenaline, and then dopamine. Next is tryptophan. ट्रिप्टोफैन से दो hormones derived होते हैं, serotonin and melatonin. We know that these both hormones, they centrally act as a neurotransmitter and peripherally they act as a hormone. And serotonin, do you know what are the hormones that are the hormones of happiness? So there are four hormones of happiness and one of those is serotonin. So what are the four hormones that are hormones of happiness? So the mnemonic for that is DOSE. DOSE for dopamine, O for oxytocin, S for serotonin, and E for endorphin. Okay. So the next thing that we have to study about serotonin is that in depression, anxiety, and panic, it had been seen that the serotonin amount, or we can say the level of serotonin, is decreased in these conditions, mainly in depression. And if we talk about melatonin, then melatonin is our hormone of sleep wake cycle, right? So it decides that how the sleep will go. So at around 9:30 p.m. the serotonin stimulates the pineal gland कि तुम melatonin release करो, and the melatonin is highest at 2 to 4 a.m. and it decreases by 7:30 a.m. So the serotonin is giving signal to the melatonin that you have to secrete at this time or you have to decrease at this time. So the both are involved in the sleep wake cycle. And the main source of serotonin is GIT, enterochromaffin cells. Now next we have to study is the vitamins that are acting as a hormone. These are vitamin A and vitamin D. Next is peptide hormones. In peptide hormones, they are classified as small peptide and large peptides. Small peptides means less than 50 amino acids, and large peptides means more than 50 amino acids. So in large peptides we have to remember three names, that is prolactin, growth hormone, and insulin. Growth hormone contains 191 amino acids. Prolactin contains 199 amino acids. Okay. Next is glycoprotein hormones. So glycoprotein hormones, they contain more than 200 amino acids, and it contains a carbohydrate subunit also. So, which are the hormones that are glycoproteins? These are TSH, FSH, and LH. What is common in these three? That they have the similar alpha subunit. And what is the differentiating feature? That these three have different beta subunit. Now the next part of classification is steroid hormones. So we know that adrenal cortex produce steroid hormones. So all the adrenal cortical hormones like mineralocorticoid, aldosterone, glucocorticoid, cortisol, and six steroids. And the main question that is asked, that the major sex steroid hormone that is produced by adrenal cortex is dihydroepiandrosterone, DHEA. Okay, it also produces androstenedione, but mainly it secretes DHEA in major amount. Next part of, so these three are adrenal cortical hormones. Other than this, data steroid hormones are gonadal hormones. Gonadal hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Okay, so this is all about the classification based on the structure of the hormone, right? Now the next classification is based on the mechanism of action. On mechanism of action, the hormones can act intracellularly, or they can act extracellularly. What does it mean by intracellular? So intracellular action means they will be having intracellular receptors which will be intranuclear or intracytoplasmic. And by extracellular, it means that the receptors will be present at cell membrane. Now let's study about, first we will study about intracellular receptors. So the hormones that act by intracellularly. So these are mainly, we have to study, the question that mainly asked is about thyroid hormones. T3 and T4 acts by intranuclear receptors. Remaining steroid hormones, as you know that cell membrane is mainly made of lipids, so the hormones that are made of steroids will cross easily the cell membrane and they will act at intracytoplasmic level. So steroid hormones act at intracytoplasmic level, right? And next thing that we have to remember about intracellular receptors, that there is a formation of receptor hormone complex, and this will initiate the transcription process. Okay, so next thing that we have to study is about the cell membrane receptors. The cell membrane receptors will be having second messengers. So there are various cell membrane receptors like GPCR. GPCR is G protein coupled receptors. Next is tyrosine kinase receptor. Tyrosine kinase receptor. Next is Janus kinase receptor. And next is serine threonine kinase receptor. serine threonine kinase receptor? We have to study GPCR in some detail. So let's study that G protein coupled receptor. It is a serpiginous receptor because it is having 7 domains, right? And it is having 3 subunits: alpha, beta, and gamma. Alpha, beta, and gamma, right? So when the hormone, the question that is asked, that is, in inactive form, GDP is bind to GPCR, and when it is active, GTP will bind. Why? Because when the hormone will combine to GPCR, the GDP will convert to GTP, and when GDP will convert to GTP, the alpha subunit will dissociate from the complex and bind to the effector. Now the effector can be the alpha and GTP bind to the effector. Now these effectors are CAMP, CGMP, and IP3DAG. So these three are very important. CGMP. By CGMP, which are the hormones or which are the molecules that act through CGMP? So these are vasodilators like nitric oxide and atrial natriuretic factor. मतलब जो भी natriuretic factors होंगे वो CGMP के थ्रू एक्ट करेंगे, right? Next thing is that they act through next thing that we have to study is CAMP, where there is activation of protein kinase. IP3DAG is responsible for vasoconstriction or the contraction of muscle. So IP3DAG calcium is required for vasoconstriction. So the hormones that plays a role in vasoconstriction, they will be having IP3DAG effector. So what are the hormones that acts through IP3DAG? Like oxytocin and V1 and V3. These are antidiuretic hormone receptors, and through CAMP, V2 receptor acts through CAMP. So this is all that we have to remember. One thing is secretin and glucagon. So this is all about GPCR. Next is tyrosine kinase. So in tyrosine kinase, which are the hormones that we have to remember, that these are insulin or insulin like growth factor. Insulin like growth factor, IGF-1 and 2. मतलब कि जो भी ग्रोथ फैक्टर्स होंगे, चाहे एपिडर्मल ग्रोथ फैक्टर हो, फाइब्रोब्लास्ट ग्रोथ फैक्टर हो, नर्व ग्रोथ फैक्टर हो, जो भी ग्रोथ फैक्टर्स एंड इंसुलिन, दे एक्ट थ्रू टायरोसिन काइनेज. नेक्स्ट इज जेक्स्टेड पाथवे. जेक्स्टेड पाथवे, so through this receptor, growth hormone, prolactin and erythropoietin acts. And by serine threonine kinase. What we have to remember mainly is inhibin and bone morphogenic factor. This is all about hormone and their receptor, how they act. One thing about insulin is that insulin sensitive receptor is GLUT4 receptor. That GLUT4 required insulin for the glucose uptake. And GLUT4 receptors are present in, GLUT4 transporter is present in heart, skeletal muscle, and adipose tissue. So this is all about the hormones that we have to study, their structures, their classification based on the structure and based on how they act, their mechanism of action. So these are the important questions that are mainly asked from this topic. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.